Hello, dear listeners. Today we're going to read another Curbside collection story. Hope it gives us some feeling of curiosity and excitement. And if you do like to hear and listen such stories, please do not forget to share, like, comment, and subscribe. So let's get started. I wasn't sure I should even send this in because I still felt strange to write it down like a fine story when it happened in the middle of a week that already felt too full. Please keep any identifying details private. I am an older woman raising my grandson. That wasn't the plan for my life, but plans change and bills don't care why. My grandson is a good kid, quiet, observant, the kind who notices everything and says very little. He does best with routines, and I've built our world around keeping things steady: school, appointments, groceries, and the kind of careful budgeting that turns every purchase into a small debate in your head. That's why I started going a little carb scanning on my errands. Nothing reckless. If someone sets something out with the trash and it's clearly being thrown away, I'll take a look, mostly for practical things. A decent shelf, a working lamp. Sometimes I can sell something small online, and sometimes it's just a way to stretch what I already have without asking anyone for help. Well, that seemed to be pretty, standard, pretty ordinary things that people do sometimes. So let's see what happens next. That morning, my grandson had ridden his bike off after breakfast the way he does when he needs space. I didn't chase him, I just let him go and told myself I'd use the quiet hour to run a few errands and check the usual spots where people set out bulk items. The first few stops were a waste of time: broken electronics, soggy cardboard, the kind of stuff that reminds you why dumpsters exist. By the fifth stop, I was ready to call it and go home, half annoyed at myself for even trying. On the way back, I drove a street I'd already passed earlier, and that's when I saw it. Right near the curb, in front of rental house, there was a pile that absolutely hadn't been there before. A mound of black trash bags stacked beside flattened appliance boxes, like someone had cleaned out a place quickly and didn't want it sitting in the driveway. I slowed without thinking and pulled over. For a minute, I just sat there with my hands on the wheel, staring. It's a strange feeling when something looks ordinary, but your body reacts like it isn't. Very interesting what's inside those bags. I told myself out loud this is probably nothing, then I got out anyway. The bags were tight, and heavier than they should have been. Not old food heavy, not yard waste heavy, dense, structured, like someone had packed objects, not trash. I looked up down the street, quiet, no one watching, no note taped to anything, no free sign. No obvious explanation, just a pile that had appeared between my first drive-by and my second. I opened the first bag, expecting a smell. Nothing. Inside was a jumble of kids' toys, clean but tossed in without care. Action figures, pieces of board games, stuffed animals compressed into odd shapes. It felt sad more than exciting, like someone had emptied a childhood in one angry sweep. Okay, well, something's starting to, get revealed there, so let's see what's there also. The second bag was different. It had folded clothes inside, men's clothes that looked expensive, a suit jacket, shirts still on hangers, leather shoes wrapped in tissue, not thrift store worn, not stained, just removed from a closet and bagged up. That didn't make sense. People don't throw away good clothing, unless something happened fast. Well, that's really interesting and weird, but it looks like people just were in a hurry and they just, left it there and forgot. So maybe that's what happened. The third bag had small boxes inside, and when I pulled one up, I realized it was sealed electronics, never-looking items still in packaging. Nothing flashy like a TV, but the kind of stuff you'd actually buy. Unopened accessories, a small kitchen gadget, a couple boxed items I didn't even recognize. At that point, my curiosity turned into unease. This wasn't one person tossing leftovers. This felt like multiple categories of a life: kids, work, hobbies, all dumped together. Well, yeah, that's kind of really weird to find all of that stuff in one spot together. Then I grabbed a bag near the bottom of the pile and nearly dropped it. It was the heaviest one yet. When I tugged it open, something inside shifted with a solid clink. Not glass breaking, not metal scraping, but the unmistakable sound of items packed in boxes, wrapped, protected. I peeled the plastic bag and saw several small hard cases inside, the kind jewelry comes in. I opened one and just stared. A heavy watch, a bracelet, a brooch that didn't look like costume jewelry, no receipts, no little thanks for shopping cards, just valuables sitting in a trash bag like someone wanted them gone without thinking. Wow, that's very scary, I would say. Well, my first thought was I should not be touching this. Yeah, definitely mine would be the same one. Well, actually, I just want to make a quick pause here and just tell you so. As you can see, there is a AI generated video shortcuts, and I hope it doesn't bother you that much. I just wanted to give you some more feeling of not just listening but visualizing a story. I'm sorry that it doesn't look that real maybe, but hope it's fine. Let's continue. My second thought was, if I leave this here, the next person who stops might not care at all. So I did the only thing that felt even remotely responsible. I took a few quick photos of the whole pile right where it was, street, car, bags. Then I called my adult son and said, I need you to come here, now, don't ask questions on the phone. When he pulled up and stepped out, he took one look at the open bag and the cases in my hands and went quiet. And right then, standing there on the side of a normal residential street with black trash bags at our feet, I realized this had just become bigger than a lucky find. We were going to have to decide what right looked like before we even understood what we've stumbled into. And we hadn't even opened the bag that had the baseball stuff yet. The one I could tell was packed differently, like someone actually cared about that was inside. Well, I'm happy she had someone to call to. Hope it all ends well. He didn't ask questions until he'd walked the whole pile once, the way you do when you're trying to understand what you're looking at before you touch it. Then he said very quietly, okay, we need to slow down. We made a quick rule right there on the curb. We weren't ripping every bag open and making a scene. We checked just enough to understand whether this was basic junk or something that could get us accused of taking what wasn't truly abandoned. So we worked like we were sorting evidence, not treasure. 2 more bags were mostly ordinary kitchen stuff. Half of it's still boxed, half of it random. One had paperwork mixed in, manuals, warranty envelopes, a couple of shipping labels ripped in half. Nothing but the full name and address we could actually use, but enough to make it feel like this came out of someone's house, not a donation bin. Well, I'm just really curious what was happening to the people or to a person who left it all on the street. Then we opened the bag that felt packed differently. You could tell just by the way it held its shape. Inside were hard plastic sleeves and small cardboard boxes taped shut, stacked flat so nothing bent. My son pulled out the first sleeve and flipped it over in his hands like he'd done it 100 times. Baseball cards, older ones, not shiny, modern, kind of from grocery store packs. Some were in top loaders, some in thicker cases. A few had little white labels with years written on them in neat handwriting. He didn't get dramatic, but I saw his face change. Then he found a small ball in a clear display cube, signature in dark ink, another ball under it, and a folded jersey sealed in plastic like it had been kept safe on purpose. It wasn't 1 or 2 items, it was a whole collection, curated, protected, the kind of thing someone builds over years. It just gives me some feelings that someone might had stolen a lot of things and was in a hurry or was just running away from police or anything and just dropped everything on the street like that. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments if you're watching at this moment. We both just stood there for a second because it stopped being random bags and started feeling like someone's life had been scooped up and thrown out in bulk. Just like I said. Another bag had coins, not loose change, coins in little holders, some in paper flips with writing on them, some in plastic tubes, a couple of small coin books with slots. My son tipped one book toward the light and said, "These aren't modern." Again, no big speech, but his voice had that careful tone people use when they're handling something that could be worth real money. By the point we were past the moment where you can pretend it's all garage sale stuff, we looked around again, suddenly aware of how exposed we were. A car went by, someone's screen door closed down the street, normal neighborhood noises, but everything felt louder. So we made another decision. We took only the bags that clearly held valuables or fragile items and left the rest. The toy bag stayed, the random broken kitchen bag stayed, anything that looked like true trash stayed. We loaded the baseball bag, the coin bag, the jewelry bag, and one electronics bag into my trunk, covered them with an old blanket, and drove away without talking much. At home, we didn't dump everything on the floor like a show. We laid items on the dining table in small groups, cards and memorabilia on the side, coins or another jewelry in its cases. The house suddenly felt too small for what we've brought into it. And then my grandson wandered in, saw the serious looks on our faces, and froze in the doorway. Well, I guess the little kid was really shocked or, feeling kind of weird what was going on with his grandmother and dad, I guess. I told him gently, "Go wash up and start your homework, I'll explain later." He nodded and disappeared, but I could feel how badly he wanted to understand. Kids like him always do. When the door to his room closed, my son finally said what we were both thinking. If we move fast and stupid, we'll get taken advantage of, or worse, we'll make ourselves look guilty. Then he picked up the watch again, turned it over, and pointed to marking on the back. "I wouldn't have noticed. This is real," he said, "not costume." We sat there in silence, staring at the table, and the question that had been following me since the curb finally landed with full weight. If nobody comes looking, how do we turn this into help for our family without making the kind of mistake you can't undo? We didn't sleep much that week, not because we were dreaming of becoming rich, but because every sensible thought came with a second thought behind it. Is this really abandoned? What if someone comes back? What if we say the wrong thing and get ourselves dragged into something we never wanted? So we did the boring, responsible thing. We photographed everything on the table under good light, front and back. We wrote down the exact street, the time, the order we opened the bags, even what we left behind. Then we put the valuables back into their sleeves and boxes, sealed them in plastic tote, and tucked it into the locked spare closet like it was something fragile, not something exciting. My son insisted on one rule: no pawn shops, no cash today, no strangers from Facebook. He called 2 people he trusted from years ago, one who knows sports memorabilia and one who knows coins, just to ask who in our area has a real reputation and paperwork. We went during business hours in daylight, and we carried only a small sample first. The reaction was the same in both places, not a gasp, not a jackpot, just that quiet change in posture when someone realizes you're holding something real. The memorabilia guy told us straight. The signed balls needed authentication to get true value, and the cards had to be handled carefully. No cleaning, no wiping, no quick flips. The coin stop said the same thing. Some pieces were common, some were silver, a few were collectible enough that rushing would cost us. The jewelry was what made me dizzy, not because it looked flashy, but because it was the kind of quality you don't find in costume bins. A local jeweler confirmed the gold, tested the stones, and wrote us a simple appraisal. He also gave us the best advice of the whole month. If this came from a curb pile, the only smart way is low and documented. That became our motto. We waited a full 2 weeks before selling anything major, just in case a notice popped up or someone came asking questions. Nothing happened. No calls, no neighbors claiming it, no posts in local groups that matched what we found. The word stayed quiet, and quiet started to feel like an answer. After that, we did it properly. The sports item went through a reputable dealer who authenticated what could be authenticated and sold it in batches with receipts. The coins were sorted, most of it was normal value, but the silver and the older pieces added up in a way that still doesn't feel real when I say it out loud. We didn't become millionaires, but by the end, after fees and a little tax put aside like grown-ups are supposed to do, it was enough to change our life in the way we actually needed. We fixed it the storm broke right way, not the good enough way. We caught up on the bills I'd been stretching, and the biggest thing, my grandson got what I've been trying to give him the whole with love alone, stability. We paid for tutoring without flinching. We set up a small saving account in his name. The house got cutier in a better way, not the lonely kid, the safe kind. I still think about the curbs sometimes, how close I was to driving past because it looked like trash. I don't feel proud in a loud way, I feel grateful and a little shaken because it reminded me how thin the line is between discarded and life-changing. If there is any lesson in it, it's this: when something unbelievable lands in your lap, the smartest thing you can do is treat it like work, not magic. That's what kept us steady. That was let the find become a blessing instead of a regret. Well, I do believe and agree that this is something like a blessing, but if you happen to find something like that, you really need to be careful and precautious in some way. So I'm just curious and interested. What do you think, guys? Leave your thoughts in the comments, share your stories with us, and if you like this video, please follow me, subscribe, and see you in the next time.